I guess we might as well call this meeting to order. This is the June 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Wakefield Conservation Commission. And I guess our first order of business is a roll call. Eleanor? You are muted, unfortunately. Okay.
Sorry. Me.
I know. Jennifer?
Present.
Okay. And I do not see Jimmy. Nope. So we'll, Judy, I think we can, or Ethan, one of you can advise me, but I believe we can proceed with three of us.
Yes, you may.
There are only four members, so at this
Yep.
point, we can move ahead. Our agenda, the next item on the agenda is review and approval of the minutes, which were issued on May 20th. And
We got the minutes on Thursday, but they're for May 20th.
Right.
You also have to vote on the 4:15 minutes.
Right.
Oh, we did that at the last meeting.
You didn't actually vote. It was tabled to the end of the meeting, but there was no vote.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Oh no, it's in the transcript, I'm pretty sure. I thought I saw
The April 15th minutes were tabled to the end of the meeting.
Okay. Okay.
Judy, the minutes say May 6th at the top, but they are actually the May 20th.
Yeah, I changed that. I just didn't send that version around.
Okay.
Because I cut and pasted it, but I changed that date.
Okay.
I was fine with the updated April 16th minutes if you guys were.
15th, I think, actually,
15th,
but yes.
sorry.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion to approve then?
Yes, I make a
Start with the
motion.
April 15th, and then we'll move to the May 20th.
Okay. So is it the 15th or the 16th? Sorry, I'm trying to get back to the agenda.
I see 15th, 4/15.
Okay.
We approved this for the 4/5 at the May 6th meeting, we approved, or at the May 20th meeting, we approved the May 6th minutes, but we didn't, we tabled the April 15 minutes to the end of the meeting and never went back to them. So it's April 15 we need to approve, and then May 20th.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the April 15th meeting minutes.
Jennifer, 1 second.
Oh, she
Wasn't on the
can't.
commission at the
Oh, she
time,
can't.
so
Oh, then you.
yeah, I may. But I
guess,
think you being 2 out of 3 can.
yes.
Can
Well, I guess I'm going to
approve.
second your motion, Eleanor. And all in favor?
You can't,
Eleanor.
you have to have 3 to take a vote.
You have to have 3 to take a vote. So Jimmy
Yeah.
has to be here to vote on
Right.
approving those April 15 minutes. Okay, then we'll move on to the May 20th meeting minutes.
Okay.
I think we're going to have to do some recruiting for this commission, because otherwise we're going to have problems managing meetings going forward. If any of us go on vacation, myself being the worst offender in that regard.
I just need a minute. I literally rolled out of a work meeting into this. So give me,
Okay.
just looking at the edits that Judy sent around. Okay. I think those are good. Judy, I appreciate you making those updates. I'm satisfied.
Okay, can we have them, and Jennifer, any further
Any
concerns?
discussion? Yep.
Okay,
I make a
Motion.
motion to approve the May 6th meeting minutes.
okay. In a second,
May 20th?
I thought we
Which
did
one?
May 6th,
Oh,
these
they-
are May 20th.
Sorry, I'm
Well,
getting
they
so
say May
confused because
6th,
I'm
Eleanor,
looking
they
at
are
the
May
top.
20th. Judy, in future, when you make an update like that, please send them out because it gets very confusing.
Sorry, I'll take that back. I make a motion to approve the May 20th meeting minutes
I'll second the motion.
Thanks. All in
with the
favor?
correction we noted to the header.
Right. Okay. All in favor? Eleanor,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So it's, those meeting minutes are approved for the May 20th commission meeting. Okay, our next item is DEP 313651, L&L Development LLC, 154 to 158 Salem Street, which was a substantial development and continued public hearing. This was continued till tonight at the applicant's request. Is there anyone present for the applicant?
They continued to the 17th.
Oh, today's only the 3rd. I'm sorry. My apologies. I didn't read it carefully. Okay, then we will leave that one for our next meeting and move to DEP 313633, Zero Patriot Circle. Request for certificate of compliance. And do we have anybody here to speak for the applicant on that one?
Hi, Stephen Lepo, present.
Hi, Steve. Ethan, have you drafted have you drafted a certificate for us?
No, but I have all the materials, if you want to look through it and vote to issue it or not. That's what we're doing right now.
So we're only voting to approve us. We're voting to issue a certificate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you take us through I guess, what was required and how you went there and determined that this meets the requirements for the certificate of compliance?
Well, you guys determine if it meets the requirements. But I can walk us through some of the materials.
Say that again.
So I can walk us through the materials,
Okay,
but
that would be good.
it's up to you guys to determine if it's up to compliance or
Why don't
not.
you start with at least a brief discussion of your findings with respect to their wetland work and orders of or the OOC, their
Yep.
compliance with the OOC. This is fine.
Okay, I'm not sure how to rotate this, but Give me a second.
It depends on what you're viewing it in.
Yeah.
Is it Adobe or?
Maybe one
just-
second.
You just
No.
opened it from Mail. I'm not sure
Yeah.
it's easy to rotate it in Mail. Save it, and
Hmm.
that seems to be the easier way to deal.
If you hit edit, you can rotate under edit
In email?
in Dropbox.
In Dropbox. Okay,
Hmm,
there it is.
I must have
We
missed
have
it.
it now.
So the project was for the construction of a house, and it
Mhm.
was near a stream and a BVW, sort of along this back line here.
Mhm.
So the main concern was the hill here, as well as replacing and replicating that riverfront area. So you see the house here, and they had the infiltration basin put in on the side yard,
Right.
and that was certified by the engineer. He said it works as expected.
Okay.
Um, the main concern was the plantings and the landscape plan. I'll pull up that landscape plan in a second.
Okay.
I think the work was done a little bit ago. Elaine had been to the site and done some review, just waiting for the landscaping. You could see a good amount of shrubs placed around the
Yeah.
perimeter,
Right.
some larger trees there, and they ended up planting about twice as many as you see on this plan. So I'm happy with that. I think that's not that they had to, but that's just what they ended up doing. So I think that
Just
benefits us the
offered
most.
them an aesthetic or whatever better solution.
Yeah, I think they were looking to create more of a fence, and just with the height of the shrubs they had, they just did twice as many.
Okay.
So I didn't have any concern. It was pretty far from the stream.
And the drainage is all to this infiltration basin. It doesn't go past the wall, this retaining wall that's around the perimeter of the property, then I take it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And any other drainage will get probably taken care of by those trees if there's any extra,
Okay.
like from the patio.
Yeah, it looks like a fairly extensive vegetation barrier by the time you're done in the direction of the wetland at least.
Yep. I had some pictures they had sent me
Ah,
of that vegetation. This is on the side. Then
mhm.
these are all those plantings about this along that whole back and side. Looks like this.
Okay. These look like arborvitae, which will fill in, I'm sure, pretty substantially fairly soon.
Yep. When I was there, they hadn't done the lawn yet, but it looks like it's all fine and all done now.
Hmm.
But yeah,
So would there be, so this would be essentially a certificate of compliance with our original approval from 2023,
yes, for the order of conditions. Yep.
but our OOC, okay.
Mhm.
There were no special conditions I saw.
No, they weren't.
Do we require, I'm just curious, do we require native plantings as a sort of standard?
Hi, it's Steve
like a
Ruffo.
pol-
Yes, let me
Okay.
interrupt. We did have some native plantings for the landscape design. All those were purchased and put on the wetland side. Those are all the smaller bushes, some inkberries and whatever the list was. I think there was about 6 or 7 different ones, and those were all planted directly on the wetland side. You can see those are the smaller ones that
Yeah.
are next to the house and against the wetlands wall.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I think that was part of the order of conditions. And what Elaine was working with was approving those plants, and they planted what I see on the plan from what I can tell.
I think, Eleanor, in response to your question, I think at one point within the last couple of years, we've made the decision to require the use of native plantings, but that hadn't been a requirement previously.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
I couldn't find it in the order of conditions, but again,
it
sometimes
may
it's
not have
hard.
been something we adopted as a policy prior to the issuing this one.
I was asked to do that at one of the previous meetings and it wasn't a big deal, so I just purchased the
Okay.
ones in the list and I added them in that area.
I
Awesome.
think, yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Steve. I think and it puts native vegetation, in an area that is, potentially impacting wetlands. So even if minimally.
Yep.
So,
That's great.
any other questions or?
These are the perpetual conditions that'll be included with the certificate of compliance, these 4 here.
No discharge of any hazardous or unsuitable materials such as stumps, roots, and debris into the wetland or the reed buffer. No dumping of landscape debris over the wall. No pesticides, herbicides, fungicides in the landscape beds. And use of fertilizers prohibited in the landscape beds on the north side of the lot along the retaining wall. Okay. All right. I think those conditions all continue to make sense as an approach. Anything further on this?
I don't have anything.
Steve, do you have anything you need to add? Want to add?
Nope, all the conditions I have, I'm fine with all those, with the fertilizer being the biggest thing on that side of the house, and I'm fine not doing that.
Okay.
And everything else I feel is, you guys are good with it, I'm good with it. Came out great,
Okay.
the project.
Good. Okay. I guess then if we have nothing more, Ethan, you have nothing to add?
Nope, nothing.
Okay. Probably a motion to approve the certificate of compliance at this point is the next step.
I make a motion to approve the certificate of compliance for 0 Patriot Circle.
I'll
And a
second the
second.
motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll go to the roll call.
Just one more thing on that. I told Ethan earlier, this is Steve again. I told Ethan earlier that it was changed from 0 to 14. So I'm not
Okay.
sure if on the records that should go into 14, because now I believe the town gave me a number, so it is 14.
You
Patriot
now have a
Circle.
number,
It was
a
0
street
before.
number, because you
Yes.
have a building there.
Yes, okay, just wanted to make that, I know I told Ethan earlier, I just want to make sure everyone's aware it's 14,
I
not
think
0.
that's something we probably should add to our records, so.
Yeah, I'll make
meeting.
sure it's all accurate with the COC.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for noting that. With that correction, all in favor, Eleanor,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So the certificate, Ethan, you'll take the steps to issue the certificate with for the house, which is now at 14 Patriot Circle.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Steve, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, have a great evening. Ethan, I'll talk to
you.
you during the week via email, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Now, that's it in terms of matters on the agenda. Next is other business, the wetland bylaw presentation discussion. Saw that circulate.
Yeah, I have a copy. I can share that
Okay,
or share my screen. I mean,
that'd be great. Thanks.
so this is the same one that we looked at last time. And then I added Jennifer sent me some slides, and then Eleanor sent me some slides.
Okay. There it is. Okay.
So I'll just go to what's added. So I don't know, Jennifer, if you want to walk us through this or if you just want to read through it.
Right, this was a slide I suggested be included in the slide presentation so that you know, people would understand where essentially how we drafted the bylaw, you know, and showing consistency with other bylaws in the state.
I mean, it does provide useful background
Yeah.
for folks to understand easily that we're not inventing this out of whole cloth.
Exactly.
Mhm.
This is data that I had sent along based on the MAC database on basically all of the bylaws across the state. So this is just, you know, simple percentages. What percent of the local bylaws in the state have each of these characteristics that we have in this bylaw draft. Let me just take a look at this again. Okay,
Two
I think
hundred
I have,
twenty municipalities have bylaws. And
right,
then of those 220, the various percentages apply to that 220.
exactly,
Okay.
right, yeah.
And then what's actually interesting, I don't know if there's a way, if you look at the map, and maybe that's something we could drop in, you see pretty much all the municipalities on the eastern half of the state have more like 80%, you know, 80,
Mhm.
over 80% of them have
Have a
wetlands
bylaw.
bylaw, right? And then you go out to the west of the state and it's more sporadic. So that
Mhm.
kind of um, skews the percentage a little bit. My
And-
suggestion, and I don't know if we just want to like make a note and then update this later, would be to look at the eastern half of the state potentially, or just point that out, you know.
Maybe that's something to note in the presentation is that if you look at the state and maybe that map that you suggest that you reference, Eleanor, is an appropriate thing to have someplace in the presentation.
Yeah, I think the map was in an earlier version of the presentation.
Was it?
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, I can
Mhm.
bring it back in. I think we decided to take it out, but I know which one you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I could take a look at the frequencies in like the eastern half of the state or where in the DEP Northeast District.
Well,
I think that's
I think
similar.
this is actually a relevant slide though in that regard, which just looks at comparable communities rather than
Right,
being to compare, focus in on the whole eastern chunk of the state. You're looking at comparable communities, most of them neighboring, or
mhm,
certainly all of them nearby.
right. Yeah, and this was based on data that I had, let's see, this came from looking at the bylaws themselves, and there was something
Did
I
you
wanted
do
to,
the analysis for this then?
I did.
Good job on that.
Yeah, I had submitted this data to the Concom before I had joined the Concom.
Uh,
And I guess I realized after I sent this that where it says bank of resource area should probably not be under the isolated wetlands. That could be moved to its own, because I don't think bank just
Hmm.
refers to isolated
Essentially,
wetlands.
what we're talking about here is protecting the bank of the resource area? Is that what that means?
Yeah, right.
Which
I'm not,
means it's not just for isolated wetlands, that would be bank of any resource area.
I
Is that
think
correct?
so. Yeah, I just opened up the bylaw to look at the wording of it. It says any bank, so, I think in, practically speaking, what's different, is that this extends the bank to an isolated wetland, but the way the bylaw is written, it does apply to any bank. So it could stay that way, or it could be not a bullet point of isolated wetlands, either way.
So where is that in the,
In the bylaw,
mhm. I'm looking
it's
at where
listed, it's under jurisdiction, section 2, and it says any bank is a resource area.
okay. And the existing state level says,
And actually, I think land subject to flooding could also be,
Hmm.
I mean, I think it can stay there, but it just doesn't need to be a bullet point because it's not a subcategory.
Okay.
So really, the bullet point could just be removed from both bank and land subject to
Hmm.
flooding.
Okay. See, I was having trouble removing that bullet point at first. That's why I went for that
Okay.
method.
okay. So both of these just simply become topics on their own.
Right, yeah. And the
Sorry.
bullet point is just clarifying what is an isolated wetland.
Right.
And those are the examples of isolated wetlands that are included in the bylaw draft.
Okay. I think that works for the
Well,
presentation.
isolated wetland, yeah, creeks and rivers and streams. Yeah. So yeah, just big picture showing that we're doing things that are very similar to other comparable communities.
Yeah. I mean, we're not stepping out into an unusual
Mhm.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Basically consistent with a lot of other peer communities in
Mhm.
what we're drafting here. It's also interesting to note that all of these communities around us already have their bylaws in place too, which is something to perhaps note in when you're making your presentation. Okay, shall we move on?
Yep.
So these are edits that you offered, Eleanor?
Yeah, I was trying to grapple with how we can get to the wetlands bylaw itself a little more quickly. And I think part of the struggle here is we're trying to do some basic education about wetlands, but it's sort of lengthening things. I think
That's the challenge, huh? Yeah.
my thought was I think the state has some good presentations. Like I found one, probably 2 years ago that was a PowerPoint that was super helpful, in terms of just briefly explaining the Wetlands Protection Act that I think we could link to on our website and say, if you want to understand this better, go here. But as far as, like getting into all the definitions when, we want to focus on what the bylaw impacts, I think is going to be a distraction. You don't want to overload people.
Yeah.
But so I tried to, take some of Ethan's information and try to like format it, try to make it a little visual. There was some AI tool that gave me these creatures, but I went with it because I thought, okay, well, that's visually interesting, more interesting than my bullets. But you know, just I think we have a tendency to be a little technical. So how can we, you know, make this more like, you know, in layman's terms and really convey to people that it's going to have minimal impact on them, but, you know, a couple of certain areas. So I think I have to open up Ethan's slide to look at it. But as I was looking at his, I thought, okay, well, how about just what are wetlands? You know, like you go to the Wetlands Protection Act and they start talking about coastal dunes, things like that. Well, let's just focus on inland wetlands. So I liked his images here. And you can move that slide up like however you want to do it. I was trying to follow your area, sorry, your logic.
Do we want both of these, or should we basically just move to what you have, slide 30 there, Ethan? And
I think you can just replace what I had at the start because these two are what Eleanor had put together. I think that covers pretty much everything.
okay,
Okay.
so this is, so
That
Eleanor,
was-
you would
that was
suggest doing
Ethan's.
both of these?
I think maybe you go back to the previous one. You would start with the first one.
Yeah.
We can find out.
I'm actually was thinking just the opposite.
Oh, what were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking, what's a wetland first,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
which is what this vision, but both the visual and the text really gives you that very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And move to the more detailed discussion you have in that the next what's now the next slide, which essentially says wetlands, where are they, you know?
And yes, I agree with you. And I think we could replace, for example, some of these bullets, you know, where something, you know, you have the general on slide 29, and then we can update this or say, you know, why are wetlands important, you know, and make it more about.
Yeah, that's actually more what you're saying here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much what they are. You defined that in the prior slide.
Yeah.
29. And here what we're talking about is, so why regulate wetlands?
Yeah.
And you know, they're adjacent to oceans, inland wetlands or areas water is at or just below the surface of the ground, and adjacent to lakes, rivers, streams as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which may be what we want to add there.
Oh, that's true. We could,
Inland where are inland wetlands? I mean, it's not just water at or below the surface of the ground, but it's also, you know,
I think
wetland
in the first, that first bullet might have been defined in the previous slide. I just,
Yeah.
I don't know what
Really specific,
definition
yeah.
you like better. So then I tried to just, below in the notes where I got the source, just to make it easier, you know, to go back and see if something changes.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so Ethan, I don't know if you want to rename this slide, why are wetlands important? And then
Yeah.
we can kind of reorganize the bullets between the two slides. And you can get rid of the EA. Then I guess on slide 31, we have Mass Wetlands Protection Act. So I just added, you know, Ethan had pretty much everything, but I added in the general law. You know, I think things like that are helpful to direct the person, you know, whether we want to make it a link in the presentation is helpful.
Eleanor, can you go back to that one that you had up
Oh,
previously?
Jimmy.
So we were saying, Jimmy, we could reorganize and make the first slide more like
Yeah.
what are wetlands, and then this one,
Yeah.
why are they important?
Okay, is it where it says inland wetlands are areas where water is at or just below the surface of the ground? Where did that come from? Did you make that up?
I got it from the Protecting Wetlands in Massachusetts. Do you see that blue
Okay.
link below?
Oh yeah, I do see it there. Okay. All right.
But we can flag that.
I think it's a good line. I think it's a good line. I'm not saying it wasn't. I just
Okay.
I was just the wording I thought might be a little odd, but no, I don't think that now. I think it looks real good.
Okay. Yeah, I think the regulations sometimes distinguish between the two because there's so many other add-ons with the coastal wetlands.
Yeah. No, that's fine. But I'm just thinking, is that really the description of a wetland? Areas
Double.
where the water is just below the surface of the ground?
Yeah, let me pull it.
Actually, go up one, go back one slide, Ethan. This is the actual definition that
Oh. Okay. Water cover.
we should essentially, these will be the first 2 or 3 slides in the presentation when we
It's
finish.
funny they don't word in vegetation in some fashion because it's linked so closely to a wetland.
Yeah.
It is.
Sorry, I'm late. I had a little trouble getting
Yeah,
on.
I mean, obviously these won't stay in red, but
But so that vital for flood storage, I think you can delete that because that's already picked up in the next slide.
but one of the things here is what you're saying, Jimmy, I think makes sense, which is that wetlands support a unique community of a unique and important community of vegetation.
Yeah.
As well as providing water management and purification functions. But
I went
here in this
this next
definition
slide.
slide, it's more what are wetlands? Wetlands are areas where water cover they're wet areas and they're areas that support a particular vegetation community. And perhaps that's
Yeah.
enough.
Okay.
So we need
Add
to
it here. What do you
Ethan,
think?
Sorry?
I could add it here in the benefits.
You can leave that as you mean the benefit about drinking water, and yeah,
Yeah.
looks like we've got it there. But
About
I was going to,
supporting the vegetation communities.
well, actually, I mean, wetlands, as Jimmy noted, though, it's more than just supporting the vegetation community. It's also that the wetlands are, the wetland vegetation communities are unique, or at least are specific to the wetlands, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because
Yeah, they're not just, there is vegetation that has to be in wetlands in order for it to survive, right? That's your
Yeah.
obligate wetland plants.
Yeah. I went back to the Mass Gov definition because I liked the vegetation piece because otherwise it sounds like a puddle in a parking lot is a wet, yeah,
Right.
is a wetland. So the way it reads, it begins coastal wetlands are directly adjacent to the ocean, include beaches, salt marshes, dunes, coastal banks, rocky shores, and barrier beaches. Inland wetlands are areas where water is just at or below the surface of the ground. Although these wetlands can appear dry during some seasons, they contain enough water to support certain plants and soils. Inland wetlands include marshes, wet meadows, bogs, swamps. So that's pretty much it. And then the colonial piece is from there too.
Mm-hmm. But I think maybe go back up to slide 29 for a minute. I think, do we need to add something here that wetlands support vegetation communities, wetlands support unique vegetation communities that require.
You know what they also wetlands do? Is they clean the waters of the Commonwealth.
I think we have that in the next slide. That may be enough right there.
Yeah.
Say protected
And
vegetation
soil.
communities.
Yep. I mean, you can grab the two bullets that are from the previous and just move them there, like into one.
So I'm looking for some of this language in the preamble from the Wetlands Protection Act bordering vegetated wetlands. I wonder if that would be a good source. I just navigated there now. The plants and soils of bordering vegetated wetlands remove or detain sediments, nutrients, and toxic substances that occur in runoff and floodwaters.
Mm-hmm.
Bordering vegetated wetlands are likely to be significant to public or private water supply, groundwater supply, flood control, storm damage prevention, prevention of pollution, protection of wildlife habitat.
That sort of all seems to be some big things that should go in number 3 or number 30, slide 30, I think.
Yep. I tried to catch all those, but maybe we take a
I think you
close
may
look.
have actually. Let's just go look at that.
But we can get rid of the ones that are definition, like the first two are
Maybe.
definitions kind of related to the previous slide. So I feel like those could go away or be.
I like the second one. I think that could stay for Wakefield.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
I think it's important to point out what we're dealing with here, that we're dealing with inland wetlands.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think perhaps distinguishing or not distinguishing, but clarifying that we're talking not only to the wetlands itself, but also the vegetation around the wetlands provide these services.
And maybe that third bullet should be consolidated into the second bullet in the previous slide.
Yep.
To at least take the marshes, wet meadows, and bogs and swamps and put that support unique, including marshes. Yeah, just exactly. Yep. I think that takes care of that. You need to shrink that right-hand picture slightly.
Oh, yeah.
It seems to have decided to grow itself.
Can you add something like somewhere in there that says, wetlands are a main tool for fighting pollution. So that's not good wording or anything, but the concept is that's what this is all about. That's what,
Right.
the Wetland Protection Act it's all about cleaning the waters in the state.
Mhm.
And I
I
don't know
think
how
maybe
you,
expand on this benefits,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. You could just make
Right.
it
make that
water
a
and then,
Just,
Yeah.
yeah, water quality.
help improve water quality by removing contamination,
yeah,
that filters out contaminants.
by filtering contaminants.
And that's really more the vegetation than the wetland itself.
Right. Well, I sort of view the wetland as the system of vegetation and water. And I mean, it's
yeah, it's
not
on,
just
yeah,
it's not just the water, it's not just the soils, it's not
it's
just
a, yeah,
it's
it's a,
all
yeah,
together.
you're absolutely right. I agree with that, Paul.
Sorry, Jim.
I said, I agree with that. That's exactly what, you're exactly right.
Okay. We maybe just don't need that blank bullet anymore at this point.
I feel like there should be, you can break up the bullets into two because
Hmm.
the
All
first two bullets are not what's important. The first two bullets have basically been addressed in the previous slide.
Mhm.
These first two here.
Yeah.
And we don't
I mean,
really
you might
say
like the
where they're
wording.
found.
You can put them down in the notes to consider using later because I still think slide 29 needs a little work.
Yeah.
But the concept is there. And then
Okay, well, now we're down to a rather sparse slide here.
just wait, we'll add, go to the bottom of, sorry. Let's see what I had for another link.
You might want to, maybe you can add stuff from this slide. Why are buffer zones important? Or-
Oh, yeah, that's what, this is essentially what, sorry, I was thinking, am I crazy? I forgot I did this slide.
Well, I mean, it's really why are wetlands important? It's more or less the same.
Yeah. Um,
That is probably the most important one right there.
mm,
Yeah, I
Why are
mean,
buffer zones-
that really should be why are wetlands important? Why is wetland protection important? Because these are the reasons you do it.
yeah, I
Well-
mean, oh, go on.
Well, I was gonna say, I think this makes a strong case for the 25-foot no disturb.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, I agree with you that it makes a strong case for buffer protections, but these are also the functions that wetlands themselves provide. And we ought to figure out a way to present this information in slide 30, why are wetlands important? And also discuss the fact that why are buffer zone protections important? Because buffers also provide that undisturbed vegetative border, which enhance the function of the wetlands in providing these values. But these are really fundamentally the functions of the wetlands themselves, right?
Hmm.
well, I think there's a lot of overlap in the functions.
Agreed. Buffer zones are, I mean, they're an essential part of the system we're trying to protect.
Hmm.
But first and foremost, the wetlands are providing us with water quality protection, flood control, erosion control by essentially serving as the the velocity control, habitat protection, and recreation. And I would say you can lose the parentheses on the recreation one too. But I'm sort of thinking we might want to put some of this at least into slide 30. Why are wetlands important?
We say something like why wetlands and their associated
Buffer zones?
buffer zones or vegetated borders are important. Something. What we could just,
Oh, go ahead.
or why are wetlands and their buffers important?
Could
I
say
kind of
why
like the
is,
idea.
sorry, you go.
I like the idea of having a separate slide for buffer zones, especially if it came after this graphic, because I think this concept is going to be new to a lot of people, and they might say, okay, I can understand why a wetland itself is important, but why is a buffer zone important? And that is critical for people to understand when we, talk about the 25-foot setback. So I think it is worth
Mhm.
it being separate so that it doesn't
Mhm.
get sort of lost.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you there, Jennifer. I just think a lot of the functions we're attributing to the buffer zones are really functions of the wetlands themselves,
Yeah,
rather than
yeah,
just the buffers.
yeah. hmm
So we need to figure out how do we take these two, take the functionality question, and which of the things in slide 31 should we move up here? And then what do we say about buffers? Right. Buffers offer protection to the wetlands, preventing the impingement of development on the wetlands. Additionally, they tend to provide some of the same kinds of functionality as the wetlands themselves in terms of erosion control. Go ahead.
I don't think the wetlands themselves um, prevent erosion or
Well,
pollution. I think the buffer, like that buffering vegetation is literally what sort of soaks, prevents sediment from entering a water body and traps nutrients.
but wetlands themselves do trap sediments and hold them as water move. It's not just the buffer that traps the sediments, Eleanor. I mean, the vegetation in the buffer is part of it, but there's vegetation in the wetlands as well, whose roots do in fact trap sediment as well as to some extent creating sediment. I'm not sure that maybe the answer is what someone suggested. Why are wetlands and their buffers important?
Well,
Well, a bordering vegetated wetland is considered a wetland, right? The BVW is a wetland,
Right.
and it is vegetated. So I think that's an example of a wetland providing some of these functions.
right. And the buffer, I guess why, I know I was the one that suggested combining the two, but to go back to Jennifer's point, if we want to, have a bylaw that specifically protects the buffer zone, we should call it out and we should say what is specifically important about it. And I think maybe with a little time we can think through and fine tune this. But I'm just looking at National Park Service, for example. I'm talking about the ecosystem services of wetlands.
Mhm.
So it's water quality. Wetlands act as natural water purifiers, filtering sediment, absorbing many pollutants in surface waters. In some wetland systems, this cleansing function also enhances the quality of groundwater supplies.
These are the wetlands themselves that do this.
It's kind of hard because when people are talking about wetlands, they're talking about the whole system.
Right.
With,
And that's
coastal
fine.
wetlands help blunt the force of major storms. For
Mhm.
example, the mangrove forests in South Florida. Well, you wouldn't call it a wetland. I don't think most people would call it a wetland if those mangroves weren't there. Do you know what it's the
Well,
presence of the vegetation that's buffering. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, much of Florida
Mhm.
wouldn't
Right.
it wouldn't be inhabited if the mangroves were still there because it would still be wet.
Right. And Louisiana wouldn't be sinking if there was still marsh vegetation
Right.
along
Right.
the river. Flood control and stream flow maintenance. Wetlands along rivers and streams absorb energy and store water during storms. So you think about a river ebbing and flowing, and those
Mhm.
slow parts typically have a wetland next to a bordering wetland, which reduces downstream flooding and lessens the risks of flash flooding. Stream bank stabilization and erosion control. And it says here, wetlands vegetation binds the soil on stream banks and riparian wetlands, preventing
Mhm.
excess erosion and sedimentation downstream. So if you
Mhm.
didn't have, if you cut it all down and leave it bare or just grass stubs, then you have more erosion entering the water body during a heavy storm. And then wildlife habitat, specialized habitat. I will send this link around, or while we're on the call, I'll try and just list some of do a document with some links that might be helpful.
Mhm.
So I think we can fine tune this. If we go down to the next slide, maybe we can go through this once, Ethan, and come back. That might be the easier thing to do. Slide 31 was why are buffer zone protections important? So I tried to highlight that.
Okay, what you put down for that? Wetland buffers. Well,
So I don't want to get
Again,
too stuck
that's
here. We've
that's
looked at
not quite
this.
right.
Okay, so we can update that. Let me move down. Sorry, this got reordered. 32. What's on that slide? We can come back to that. So 33 was what I was thinking after sort of the buffer slide, just sort of explaining,
Mhm.
When we're talking about these terms, what visually does it mean? And so this came from the MACC buffer zone manual. And then
Right.
I highlighted sort of the areas in the bylaw in orange where
Mhm.
we would be essentially the bylaw would apply to. And maybe I'm missing something, but you can look. I tried to make a little arrow for 25 feet buffer zone on both sides, and then really the isolated land subject. Oh, is that it? Isolated land subject to flooding. I don't know if they don't really have a vernal pool or, isolated
our vernal
vegetated
pool.
wetland.
Well, they have isolated land subject to flooding. They're showing on there too, which could also be a vernal pool.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's the same. Okay. Oh, so maybe we should add, Ethan, if you want to make a note or a text box somewhere, we can fix it, and includes vernal pool and isolated.
I think this is a great slide to include and will be really helpful. I think I was wondering if it would be helpful to also include like an arrow in a different color that shows what the Wetlands Protection Act already protects,
Mhm.
so that people can see, you know, that what we're talking about are really some kind of small marginal changes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's one suggestion. And the other is, so I see two arrows showing, two short arrows showing a 25-foot no build. And I think probably an additional one belongs adjacent to the isolated land subject to flooding, because that would be not just that land, but it would be 25 feet out from that.
Oh, good point. Okay. So you would
Mhm.
extend that arrow. Okay. I can do that. Yeah, I just dropped in those arrows. And really this whole diagram is what the Wetlands Protection Act applies to. So maybe I could add a big red arrow across the top or something.
Yeah, I like a red arrow. Yeah, that covers everything the WPA does. And
Yeah.
yeah. Right, and the text box you were talking about showing that isolated land subject to flooding also in the case of the bylaw includes isolated vegetated wetlands, vernal pools.
You know,
Mhm.
Eleanor, you might be able to do that in that, by eliminating some of that text at the bottom.
The problem, it's one big diagram.
Oh, is it? Okay, then you can't
But you
do
know what?
that.
I could probably cut it out and put the attribution below.
Yeah, leave the attribution, but the rest of it, the discussion, the overall headline that you're trying to
Yeah.
hit here
Yeah.
is that this is what, you know, the Wetland Protection Act
Mhm.
is addressing.
Yep. So
Which is
then,
wetlands and their buffers.
yeah.
Okay.
Wakefield. So then I thought we just need to have something that just gets us to the punch. Like, what are we proposing?
Yeah.
You know, so whatever codifies, establishes vernal pools protection, establishes protections for isolated vegetated wetlands.
Mhm.
And I think for each of these, we probably want its own slide as to why it's important to do that. Then I added a thing does not include additional filing fees or paperwork. But Judy pointed out that yes, there will be additional filing fee, like on areas that are not covered under the Wetlands
They're not
Protection
subject
Act.
to the state Wetlands
But
Protection Act.
But this is where I'm confused. The only thing I can think of in this case would be a vernal pool that's nowhere near a wetland, or
Mhm. Well, then it would
and
be a different resource, so it'd be isolated land subject to flooding.
so that's still our resource area, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's just another resource.
And so in other words, it still falls under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah, yeah.
No, a vernal pool can be outside of that resource.
You don't
Because
think?
the wetlands,
Oh,
under the Wetlands Protection Act, a vernal pool has to be within a resource regulated by the Wetlands Protection Act.
In
Yeah.
order to be protected.
Correct.
Whereas
would be
we're
saying-
saying that if it's a vernal pool, regardless of whether it's within a wetland as the WPA defines them, it's protected under our bylaw.
Correct.
That's the real distinction, Eleanor. That's essentially because if we weren't doing that, there wouldn't be a reason to do this. And for filings on those, there will be a fee that people would not pay now because they wouldn't have to file for them.
does that happen though? Sorry, my camera's off.
What?
Do people
Aren't you
come?
trying, Go ahead.
Do people contact the commission and say, I've got a vernal pool in my backyard, can I fill it in? Yep, okay. I mean, does that happen today without?
I have no idea, but
But if they
I'm
had, a
guessing
vernal-
people just, go ahead, Judy.
if they had a vernal pool that wasn't within a wetland, then they could fill it in.
Yeah. We'd
Do
have no
they-
authority to stop it.
Well, that's the thing. Is that something you're trying to protect? Is that one?
Yes.
So somehow that's got to get included.
Well,
So
we
you-
say that here, the second bullet here says that.
So we're saying there are no additional filing fees on top. So I have to go back and see how we worded that in the bylaw
Mm.
because we,
I
it
mean,
would be consistent with whatever the Wetlands Protection Act.
I think what we have in the bylaw is that if it's a filing under the local bylaw only, they would, well, let me check.
Yeah, I was just about to look at that.
It says no filing fee shall be required under the town of Wakefield's bylaw review above and beyond what is required under the Wetlands Protection Act. In the event a resource area is covered under the bylaw but not the act, the filing fee will be the same as an NOI. So there will be a fee if it's if it falls under the bylaw only. And
Yes,
it'll
so
be
what
the same as,
I think I was trying to say no additional fees.
Mhm.
Like it's,
but I think there would be an addition. Well, I see what you're saying. No, okay.
we're not raising the amount of fees, but every filing will now pay a fee, whether it's with us or with the state.
Yeah.
well,
No additional fees when included when accompanying the Wetlands Protection Act filing.
Might be something that's can be better explained like when you present it. I don't know if anything in writing will make it crystal clear.
so Ethan, when somebody sends you a filing fee, does the town of Wakefield keep that or does it go to the state?
Back goes to the state. Back,
There's a portion that goes right to the state and then a portion that goes right to us. So we take our portion. We don't see the state's portion.
Okay, so what would be the difference here is there'd be a filing fee, but we would keep, that's not above and beyond what would be charged by the state or under the Wetlands Protection Act, but we would keep 100% of it for
Right, and it would
vernal
only
pool.
be for a vernal pool or an isolated wetland, not currently protected because it's too small, right?
I think so, but I'm new.
let me ask you this, were you putting the 25-foot no disturb around these isolated wetlands?
Yes,
Okay, so that's your way of being more restrictive, like they're saying you need to do in the regulations, right?
Yeah, well, the
So
isolated
that's
wetland
really-
itself
that's-
as a resource area, plus the 25-foot setback are both more restrictive.
I didn't hear that, Jennifer. What'd you say?
The isolated wetland as a resource area,
Yeah.
and the 25 no disturb for all resource areas.
because currently isolated wetlands below a certain size or vernal pools are not protected under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Is it possible to have a, oh, never mind.
Nope, say it.
No, I don't think it's relevant.
So we can fine tune how to word that.
Mhm.
I guess keep okay. Oh, sorry. Go back to your thing. You had the permitting.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I mean, that gets it. I think, again, I was just trying to get to the, like, what
We
are the
may not
things we're
need
trying
the
to
other,
pass?
yeah, we may not.
Well,
need
we do need a slide that concisely explains what it is we're trying to do with the bylaw, because
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we're sort of educating people on the Wetlands Protection Act here, but not quite,
Yeah, we
you
need to
know.
try to figure out a way to almost create the, what you've done with a lot of these, Eleanor, is make them into something that almost looks like an executive summary. And I'm thinking that may be high value because for a lot of people, that may be as much as they look at.
Yeah. And then, sorry, so that was that, like that, and maybe we need to fine tune this or add a little bit more, but just this is this concept of the slide. And then, sorry, below it, this got separated. But I just put in photographs of what a wetlands buffer zone could look like. And these could be replaced, but the fact that,
Mhm.
sort of connecting wildlife and
Yeah,
vegetation,
that's a good
and that
idea.
it's beautiful.
Mhm.
Mhm. The only thing I can say is that, for all the time I've spent doing this, the biggest complaint is flooding. So I don't
Mhm.
know how you want to deal with that, but I think if you're talking about getting it down to people being able to understand it, they understand flooding.
Mhm.
So I don't know how you can capture that, or if you think we need to capture that, but I think something should be said that relates to what we're doing.
Wetlands serving as a means of flood control.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, not that
Yes.
you want to say to the woman or whoever it is, look at it, if you put this retention chamber in, you're never going to get flooded. I mean, that might be something, someone would be really interested in,
Mhm.
but you don't want to commit to, I mean, it'd probably be
We're
safe.
gonna have a hard time saying that.
Yeah, so you might, I don't know if there's a way you can, if you guys come up and you're better than me at figuring how to talk about it. But
Well,
I mean, I'm just telling you that's what I see as important.
Yeah,
mhm.
well, you're right.
And
I
I think
think
that's something that,
people do complain about flooding. I mean, they don't think one way or the other. They may complain about mosquitoes as a feature of
yeah,
wetlands a lot,
yeah.
but
Mhm.
otherwise they don't really pay much attention to wetlands. But flooding they pay attention to.
And then the other thing I think is great too is what Ellen has done with the plants, because I think that brings some beauty back into it. So they're not looking at, they're looking at something nice now.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are two factors that would register in someone's mind.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Eleanor,
so I think it was suggested to expand that list of functions into each one having its own slide as a possibility. I mean, that would
Mhm.
definitely give you a chance to elaborate on
Mhm.
flooding.
Mhm. And maybe even feature something in Wakefield.
well, do we have anything? I mean, I expressed the concern earlier when we started talking about this of just how big this presentation is now.
Well, I think we have to eliminate sections and focus it on the Wakefield bylaw and direct people to, a different presentation, that's user friendly and to our website personally.
All
And
right.
we could always link to that presentation from the website. I have to find it again, but
Are we envisioning us? I guess this is a question maybe for Jimmy, because you've been around here a lot longer than any of the rest of us. In terms of how we're dealing with this bylaw, are we envisioning that we're going to actually do this as a road show in town somewhere at, meetings of community groups or whatever?
Judy, how would that be done? She would know.
You mean going to different boards? Or what are you talking about? Are you talking about having an in-person meeting?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, is this basically going to be something we put up on our website and point people to? Or is it going to be something we take around to various boards or,
Well, I think you could have a public forum.
okay,
I think that would be helpful.
public forum on Wakefield's proposed wetlands bylaw.
Correct.
Okay,
I think some of the things that were helpful with the MBTA 3A communities was they did several public forums, like during a planning board session or during the MBTA communities session, so people could ask questions.
mhm,
And then the presentation was kind of refined in response to the questions that came in. Oh, a lot of people are asking this. Let's make a FAQ and add it to the website or add it
Mhm.
somewhere. And then they also did things like some in-person presentations, like at the senior center, and had a meeting. They might have served lunch. I can't remember. Not that we probably can't do that,
we
but
probably don't have a budget for lunch.
no. But I did reach out to the planning board to see when we could get on their calendar, given that there's not a requirement for it to be a formal public hearing, where it's advertised in the newspapers. So, if you've listened to any of their meetings, it's they ask a lot of similar questions that we do. So they're, sometimes I think, oh, we should be sitting in the same hearing because they're asking about vegetation and stormwater runoff. So I think they would be a great audience to test drive this with and see what questions we
They, the
get.
planning board ask,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, they're subject matter experts. And I think a lot of them work on projects in other communities, so they also know kind of what works well, or, if they foresee any issues. FOLQ, Saugus River, Saugus Watershed, I'm messing it up. What is it? Saugus River Water Council? Yeah,
so those might be some of the groups we speak to,
yep,
okay,
ESC.
okay. Then
Did
what
I put
else do we
any?
need to do with this tonight?
I think we need to include, at Jennifer's suggestion, we need probably slides to discuss sort of each element, why we're seeking to protect it.
So let's go
Right.
back to that slide for a minute.
Yeah.
This one?
Nope. The one that lays out and down.
That's it.
Oh no, that was one, like doing a slide like this for vernal pools, for further down. I don't know why this got sort of out of order, but go down to the bottom. 34. That this should kind of come up early in the presentation. Like, here are the 4 things or 3 things we're trying to do. And then here's why we're doing each one of them. And here's how it's going to affect you.
Yeah, that's,
And
yeah.
And why is each one important, kind of thing. And to have a mix of visuals, so it's not just text on the page.
Mhm. Well, I think the first one, the codifying the note 25 note, put no disturb policy,
Mhm.
it should be an easy one to find a graph to either find or get or have a graphic built for.
Well, we have one kind of up above. Oh,
Do we?
I think I've seen others.
You mean that one that's that one?
I guess that's really, yeah, the wetlands.
That is a fairly busy graphic is the one
Yeah.
concern I have.
Yeah, maybe there's a specific one we could do just for the buffer zone, yeah. And I think there's a lot you can say about buffer zones. I mean, when you think of all the vegetation, if you have a bunch of trees growing near a wetland, they're, you know, they're holding water too, right? All living things are made up of water.
Mhm.
Um, So, Ethan, I don't know if you want to circulate this
Yep.
with your edits, and we can kind of take another stab. So I guess the other question is, who would be presenting? I don't think it has to be one person. It can be, you know, people going to different, you know, doing different outreach, you know, different people doing presentations.
I would think we'd share the burden among us, actually, yeah.
You know, Eleanor, I think you really might have made a good point here that the goal is to clean the water. The tools we're using are the wetlands and some of these systems that engineering systems, and the outcome is clean water. I mean, if you put in those brackets, it describes the whole thing. What you're trying to do. Just throwing that out there. I just thought of it. So I'm not saying that you got to use that. I'm just saying I think there's some merit to that.
Yeah, actually, I'm taking a note right now. That is a good point.
Is the commission going to revisit the stream setback repeal for the November town meeting?
What we were advised by the attorney was to not repeal it before passing a wetland bylaw.
But if
He
you
said-
do that, right, but if you do that, then it means someone, for example, who wants to put a small addition 40 feet from a brook would have to get 3 permits from 2 different boards. And I think
What-
that could be problematic.
What the attorney said was the more stringent rule would apply and that we could work on that.
What do you mean? No, but it's a separate, but it's a zoning variance. So it's a different, it's like a parallel permitting process. You wouldn't be able to discard one or the other. You would still have to get the 3 permits.
We can go back. I'll have to go back and look at my notes.
Because I don't think repealing the 50-foot stream setback would have any impact on this bylaw. The impact-
Their feeling was that it was better than nothing, that if this failed and you repealed the stream setback first, then you've got
Right,
nothing.
Right, but the
And-
stream setback doesn't provide any additional protection. That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's one of
That's
the
been the whole
requirements.
problem with it from the start. There's no performance standards, there's no basis to make a decision on a zoning variance.
So that's a good point. We can put in this deck that we would repeal the stream setback. But it has to be done separately because it's a zoning bylaw.
Right, but it can be done separately at the town meeting. It wouldn't be part of this, but it can be done separately. That's what I'm saying.
I think that's worth thinking about because that's an
I
important.
think, yeah, he had a way to get around that. So I think I'll have to go back and check my
Mm,
notes.
okay.
he wasn't concerned, and this was all recorded too, so it's maybe helpful for other people to watch it. I can send the video and the minutes and see what the group thinks. But Judy, you're absolutely right. The goal is to sort of streamline things.
Where are you on the agenda for tonight?
We talked about outreach.
And we essentially, we've moved through the agenda. We're in the wetland bylaw presentation, and then the last thing is agents update and planning.
Okay.
Oh, and
Okay.
before Jimmy, maybe we better approve the meeting minutes now that Jimmy's here for April.
Yes,
I don't want to leave
April
those to the end
15th
because
meeting minutes.
everybody signs off too fast.
Yeah, okay. So Jimmy, we have to approve the meeting minutes for April 15th
Mm-hmm.
because we
Okay.
did not do those at our last meeting. And Jennifer was not yet a member, so she can't vote, and we need 3 people voting.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
Well, we need a motion again to approve the meeting minutes for April 15th.
Okay,
Oh, you can make the motion.
you made the motion, I'll second it.
Okay. Eleanor, can you
Gotta
make
do a
that?
roll call.
Yes.
No, first, are you making the motion, Eleanor?
Sorry, I thought Jimmy was.
I
This is
did.
okay. So Jimmy made the motion. I second it.
Okay.
Roll call.
All right, if Jimmy made the motion is to approve the meeting minutes of April 15th, 2025. All in favor? Eleanor,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yes.
Jennifer can't vote because she wasn't a member at the time, and I vote in favor as well.
Okay.
The meeting minutes for April 15th are now finally approved. Thank you all for that. Okay, now, do we have anything additional on this other than Ethan will be circulating this bylaw? What else is on the agenda in terms of planning and?
I guess we would have to think about on the agenda. I mean, we need to give ourselves a deadline to wrap this up. This should be wrapped up by the next meeting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We may need some work to fill in some of the other blank slides, or we may want to delete them, but yes.
No, and this is helpful information that's in it. I wouldn't get rid of anything because sometimes you bring it back.
Okay.
And I mean, just set it to the side, Ethan, once we, narrow this down.
Okay. So, Ethan,
And
do you
then-
have other matters to report to us on that?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, just a couple things to catch up on. So we got a letter about the vocational school ORAD possibly expiring. Did you guys see that come through?
Yeah, from Julie Scott.
It was Christine Rue.
Oh, it was Christine Rio on that one? Okay.
With the appeal party.
Yes.
Like-
Okay.
From what I've seen and what Elaine said, there's a 2-year automatic extension that would apply to that, so that ORAD wouldn't have expired quite yet. So
It looks to me like, based on the materials you circulated, that the ORAD wouldn't expire until 27.
I think it was maybe 2026
Yeah.
next year.
Okay.
I think it would have expired last year.
So they would have to come back to us to ask for an extension of their ORAD, or would we have to do it again?
I believe that wouldn't matter once they have their order of conditions. I think they would still, they could go based off the wetland boundary that's approved with that. Because once you have that order of conditions, the ORAD is sort of moved, you've moved past it at that point.
Mhm.
So the ORAD is a permit, in other words.
Yeah, the ORAD sort of defines the wetland boundary.
Yeah. Paul,
Do
that's
they
where I was
not have
struggling
an
a little
order of
bit.
condition from DEP?
Yes, they have a superseding order.
Yeah, I thought so.
But if that did come up, that's worth a little more research. But for now, I think we understand that the permit hasn't expired at this point.
Right,
Mhm.
because of the extensions that the pandemic generated.
This was a
Is it-
separate one, I think, after the pandemic, but yeah, another
is
2
it-
years.
Ethan, does it expire within 30 days of, because I think they had 30 days, if they had a file before, I might have this wrong though, they had a file up before, 30 days before it expired, right? I don't know, Judy would probably know too.
This,
Or you
this is
know,
within that
you
You have
checked it out.
period.
You have to file a request to extend it 30 days before, but it's not expiring, so they don't have to file that.
Okay,
And they have an order of conditions, so they're all set.
okay.
So on that topic, I'll probably just write a little response back to them
Mhm.
explaining this pretty much.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I think it would be useful to provide a response to Christine.
Yep. And then going into the next one, I think Jennifer had mentioned discussing how we respond to these sort of things. That might be worth a discussion. If you have any ideas on that.
I had one question, which was before we get on to that, if that's okay, the property that had a superseding order of conditions and was looking.
Sure, let's finish. We'll get to that after this one,
Okay,
since this
okay,
one's
okay,
sort of related.
perfect.
I think just when people like send letters or have questions for the commission, how you want to respond to that, or if you want to respond to those at all, might be worth setting up some sort of system for that. Whatever you think.
Personally, I think it's helpful, me personally, when I've emailed other boards or staff people to acknowledge that you received the email, because sometimes I've had the experience where it goes, into the ether and you never know if the person got it or whatever. And you can always talk to the person and give an update. I think from our perspective, since we're new commissioners and you're relatively new, we are curious about what types of requests are coming in. I've been curious, like, so these are more, that one in particular was more procedural. I think you forwarding the letters to us when a constituent has a concern is great. I think it's helpful. I think what's difficult is we don't give ourselves space in the agenda to address the issue. But I think it would be helpful, and we don't have to call the person out by name. It can be this constituent wrote us about a concern about XYZ. And then, it can be, well, this is outside our jurisdiction, or this is the way we would handle it, or, what do you think, Ethan? And then you could communicate with the person. I'm just saying generally, because we don't have public, we don't have public, we don't allow the public to just come and talk to us, right? Unless it's a public hearing.
They can speak on a topic that's before us. They can't just come in and talk about general concerns, no.
Right.
So I think when it comes to questions targeted towards the commission, I guess one option is just responding to them when you receive it, or you can discuss it at the meeting, like you mentioned. With discussing it at the meeting, you might have a good week or two between responses, if that's something you'd want to do.
Mm,
Or one of you could always just write a response back to them if it's something simple.
Yeah,
Well, I just as an example, that one from Christine for tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've discussed a response.
Mhm.
That's one that I think I would respond to anyways, being more of an administrative one.
mm,
It just happened to come up at the same time as this discussion, so
Mhm.
I thought talking about that and using that as an example would be good.
I
But
think it's
more in line with ones that don't, I guess, require a response, something that's more of a courtesy.
yeah,
And I think if you've circulated them to us and we have thoughts on how to respond, we can discuss those and probably should have time at the end of the meetings to do that, have those discussions.
Mhm.
Um,
I think kind of what you're
do we
saying.
get many commentary letters that you don't send on to us?
No. Usually
Okay.
they just send it to me and request it to be sent to the
Mhm.
commission. So
Okay.
I let them know that I do that. And then I guess what you're saying, when the time comes, if there's something that you want to discuss, we can always bring it up at the time and then add it to an agenda.
Mhm.
mhm,
Yeah, I think it's helpful to be able to say, oh, this person raised this particular question. What's the story there? That's helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
I think I might ask you just to bring it to my attention if you want it on the meeting. Otherwise, we'll just assume you don't have issues when we
I
look
think
through each one.
if we have an agenda topic and that's like update on communications received to the commission or by the agent or something like that, we can talk about these matters that come up. I don't think we can take action on them necessarily. Like we're not voting, we're just sort of discussing what's coming through. And like for example, there haven't been tree removal requests in a while, so I don't know
Mhm.
if you're not getting them or what's happening there, but they, in the past were a frequent occurrence. Have you been getting any recently?
I had a couple very simple ones. I tend to do those administratively myself. One or two tree, little to no impact, usually being replicated anyways. But any large ones I bring to the commission.
Is the commission supposed to approve all the tree removals? I wasn't sure.
Either
I
the
had that.
agent or the commission from what I've seen.
Eleanor, we've in the past, we would have Elaine do all this stuff. So
Mhm.
I think it's reasonable for Ethan to do it. I mean, it's not,
Okay.
I mean, if you thought there was something that was going to cause something dramatic, I think there's going to be very few occasions where he would bring it up to us, but there might be one once in a while. But I
Okay.
think I wouldn't want to get him bogged down in that. We have other stuff that's important.
Right. I wasn't sure what was done before. I just had seen it on the agenda
Yeah,
for the last few years, so I wasn't, they periodically come up.
yeah,
Um, all right. I do think it's important to track the ones you're getting and to keep a record of them because, again, at the
Yeah.
end of the year, we need to produce stats in terms of
yeah,
like what you're working on and the types of inquiries you're getting. It's probably helpful to just make a note of it. Are people calling you about knotweed? I know Elaine brought up that issue once, but we haven't heard anything since. You know, you are our representative to the community, so we're not going to really know, you know, what people are reacting to or contacting you for
Mhm.
unless you update us. And again, it doesn't have to be super detailed, but just like, oh, I'm getting a lot of calls about knotweed, or I'm getting, you know, we
Mhm.
had a big storm. I got
Yeah.
14 calls to remove tree, you know, to approve tree
But you-
removals, that kind of thing.
But you could do that the way you're doing it now, couldn't you? Just at the end
Yes,
of the,
yes. That's why I suggested this format.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I will say I don't think I've had one call on knotweed, so I think
Okay.
I know you're the expert on that one. So
I want to
I'm
plant it
just,
everywhere. I like the flower.
stop. I'm going to kill you. Jimmy, you can't do that. Can we move on to the last one? That, because that was an interesting.
yep.
The so it was a maybe you can explain it better, Ethan. But
Sure.
it yeah, was a certificate of compliance for. You explain it.
Okay.
It involved a superseding order of conditions. So go on.
Yeah, someone was looking for a partial certificate of compliance on a superseding order of conditions. I guess that's a little different from the typical ones we see because with the superseding orders, the COC request goes right to the state on those ones. So in this case, it was a very old like subdivision, so it was more of an administrative thing they were doing. But usually the state will review those and sometimes reach out to us if they want more information. But yeah, that's stuff that I guess happens every now and then. That only comes to us once it's complete.
So the state would actually issue the amendment to
The
their
certificate of
superseding order.
compliance. This is talking about having a superseding order of conditions when someone
Right.
requests a certificate of compliance, like once the work is done.
So does the state issue the certificate?
Yes, yeah. The request goes right to them and they issue it.
Okay.
So what is it that you had to provide in that, you know, because
In
you
that
were looped
process.
in by Tyler Ferrick? Like, yeah, what did you have to provide to that process?
I didn't really provide anything other than informing the homeowner on how it goes to the state instead of the town. But usually the state will ask the applicant or us for more information if they need it.
Okay.
Don't
And
they,
Jimmy,
I was just gonna say, Ethan, sometimes they'll even have you there. They might want to have you there. I know on other occasions, they want someone from the commission there as well. So you
Yeah, yeah,
may not be able to keep going.
they might have us do the site visit for them
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
or they'll just do it with us. Yeah.
and it sounded like they were closing on the home quickly, and you didn't have to go out and do a site visit or do much.
No, there wasn't really anything for me to do. I think it was a very old order of conditions, so they weren't. What they understood was that that lot was not subject to any jurisdictional areas. It was only included because it was part of that property with the subdivision.
Yeah.
Jimmy, do you remember
They
that?
were up the hill from the jurisdiction properties, is that reading
Was
here?
Castle Clare subdivision?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We might have one like that next week, not a superseding order, so we can look at that. That'll be a good example of that.
Mhm.
And then I guess we would have that with the Voc as well, right?
But I meant in regards to like subdivisions, like old permits.
Okay.
Yeah, the Voc would be the COC would come from the state on that
Great.
one.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
assume they'll work with us on that too.
No, that was an interesting request, and so thank you for explaining that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've had those before, but usually it's like simple things, not with superseding orders. So I think with the superseding orders, it's very simple for the state to do. They don't
Hmm.
have a lot of concern about like anything that's happening on the site once they understand what the plans included.
Do they typically do a site visit when they issue their certificate of compliance?
Typically, yes. For like a project with work that was just completed, or they might ask us to do it for them if it's
Mhm.
something kind of small.
Okay,
Usually they'll do it. Yeah.
okay, one way or the other. I mean, I'm thinking about the boat as the example, that's a rather substantial.
Yeah, I think that one they'll definitely do it themselves, and they'll probably invite us as well, just with how large it is.
Yeah,
Do we have a copy of their order for the evoke? Where it came from the state?
Yes.
yeah, I think I've seen that order.
You seen it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's coming up next week? I'm going to be out. Sorry. Talking about planning.
Nothing, not too much. There's just one example, like I was saying, of an old order, someone looking for a COC, part of a subdivision, similar to that superseding one we just talked about.
Okay.
But that'll be simple.
Is that it for tonight?
I
don't
had
know.
one more thing, I guess. Pull this
Hmm.
up. So with the 200 Quantapawitt development, they were asking us if they could move one of the compensatory storage locations. I'll pull this up in a second.
Oh,
So as part of the order, they had to, wait, I'm not sharing my screen. Part of the order, they had compensatory storage just to offset what they were doing. And
this is the area I was looking at.
here you can see this, I'll pull up the plan that was approved. So the dash line that you can see here is what was approved with the order of conditions.
Hmm.
But what they found is on this bottom corner here, there's a good amount of shrubs and trees. So they're looking to move it just to where this green area is.
What is going there? Like, is that the area that I had photographed and sent you the
Uh,
picture of?
might be nearby. It might be, I
Yeah,
think it's more
go
like
back, go back. That's this. Go back. That's what I was photographing with the
yeah.
but from a different angle. What are they doing there? Is that new? I mean, that was planted. Sorry, can you go back? Oh,
What do they do? Well, what
So
was
the
originally,
compensatory storage is going to be implemented in that area.
that
What
was
are they
already
going to
approved
do? Oh,
with the
they've
they
got
order.
it.
is that a they dug this hole to store water and discharge it to the lake? Was that something the commission approved? Or was that naturally here before?
I think that was a culvert that had existed before.
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay.
I'll pull up
And
this other picture. It'll give a
oh,
better.
but why would, sorry, can you go back to that for a second? Do you see that? I'm moving my cursor, you can't see, but it's like grass that was replanted. It was almost like they made a U-shaped path that crossed the culvert off the path. Was that what was going there? Like, why did they dig all that up?
Um, it may have been the temporary stream crossing they had for when they were doing the construction, I think. But it was, I wasn't aware of anything that was violating the order. But that
I
might
don't know
not
if
be
it's,
this location either.
yeah, I don't know. I just have no idea what they're
I think as they were
doing in
doing
there.
work,
Mhm.
they were doing work here, so they
Mhm.
created a temporary path so people could still walk around the lake without having to walk through the construction here.
But
I believe
there's,
that's what this area was.
but that's never been cordoned off. You've always been able to walk on the path there.
They were doing with the construction they were doing for that amount of time. In that spot, they had closed it off. I think you see some pavement on here. That may have been some of the work they were doing um, on the culvert itself. So that's why this
So
temporary
they
path is
won't,
put in place.
So
Yeah,
essentially what they're saying is they don't want to use that area that they've shaded in red on this photo for compensatory storage, but the two other areas that are shaded would be used.
Yes, I'll show you this one
Yes.
picture
Yeah.
because they
they
saw
want
that.
to- They want to
Yeah.
eliminate storage?
No, they just want to move it because they saw once they staked out the area, they realized there was more vegetation and
Right.
trees than they initially thought.
And they don't want
Oh.
to demolish those.
Yes,
Mhm.
so
You
they
should,
are.
well, you should, you need to make sure that, I mean, it looks like you got this, the wetlands right there.
It is. I wouldn't be comfortable voting for this. I mean,
Well, the red is what's approved with the order of conditions. So
Yeah.
they're just moving it to the green. So it covers the same.
So
All right,
they're
so they're moving
essentially
it
putting
away,
compensatory storage in what is currently lawn.
but why would they move it in?
Because there's part of what's there on the paper plans. Once you go on the ground, you see that there's actually trees and vegetation in this little corner. They're just shifting it back a little bit to preserve that.
if they're
So they're
moving
going to be
it,
doing excavation there to create the compensatory storage, or?
It would be the same process that they're planning on doing because that the red area is what is approved under the order of conditions.
Are they
Mhm.
moving it to the green area?
Yes.
Yes.
that's better. I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I mean, we're not demolishing what is a vegetative buffer to the lake as well as a, you know, wetland area.
Yeah. And going back to this plan, the dashed part is what's approved. The green is
Mhm.
where they're looking to move it to. So it's the same 6 cubic yards storage area.
What would be stored there?
It's just extra like flood storage, I believe.
So
How
it's
does the-
intended to hold water?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it'll be dug out
Yes, I
or
believe so.
excavated, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so they're going for, if it's 100 square feet, now they're gonna keep the 100 square feet of storage, right?
Yes, the same
There's
size.
temporary wetland disturbance, 100 square feet. That's a small area. And now they're gonna do the whole area as, as the storage instead? Is that a pipe going through there?
That's a
Or,
culvert that's there. Yeah.
is it existing culvert or new culvert?
I believe existing. Maybe they replaced it. I don't recall, but it was there as a channel
Mm.
already.
Hmm. Is it a stream?
I'm not sure.
Is it intermittent?
To me, it looked like a culvert draining directly to the lake.
Hmm.
No, I think it goes the other way, doesn't it? Or maybe,
No, it would
we
go.
I
don't
think
have
that
any.
one drains into the lake, Jimmy. I think that's one of the ones that may have been created to take more water away from 128.
I think there's only two that go to the lake, and I don't know right
Oh,
now.
It's
we may have to walk over there, Eleanor, and figure it out.
yeah. To me, I'd love to walk over there with you because I'm not an engineer and I didn't follow the project when I was on, but this is like my jogging route. So it's been open the whole time, you know, people have been able to walk the lake. So I'd just be curious what they're doing. And sort of how the just as a learning opportunity for me, how the compensatory storage works. You know, I think in principle, moving it back further from the lake and not impacting the vegetated buffer, that would be great. I did walk that area, and there's some decent native vegetation there in that particular spot. But I was curious about what they were doing there. And it sounds like, Ethan, if they're working on the culvert, maybe that's why there would be that funny U shape of construction.
Yeah, I believe the work on the culvert is done. That was most likely from a temporary path.
But I always thought this was town land, so I'm sort of surprised that they would be that the applicant would be doing compensatory storage on a different parcel of land.
No, that are they
Yes.
doing? They wouldn't be doing that on someone else's property.
Well, I always
No,
thought that the path, the walking path,
Yeah,
the area between the walking path and the lake was Wakefield property, town property.
the walking. Yeah,
I don't think that's the case because I believe some other discussions brought up the point that part of the path was being donated from the property owner to the town,
to
or
the
part of it was
town.
being allocated as a path.
The path has been here there for some time. I think I could probably forward you a newspaper article about that. There was like a big thing 20 years ago. I thought to get that path and that land between the path, you know, basically given to the town.
You may want to look
Yeah, there was-
order of conditions because
Conditions? Okay.
they've had a requirement that they needed to work there. I
Okay.
don't think they would just work on town land.
Okay.
Yeah, I would expect they would have gone through any of that legal processes as they had to, but yes. So as
Yeah,
far
I've never.
as moving the compensatory storage, do you have?
I would have to see that. I'm not comfortable with that until I see exactly. I mean, I'm sure it's nothing, but I would like to see it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Do we want
I
to do a
can-
site visit?
Ethan, can you get to it right off the walkway? Or
Yeah,
how
you
do you?
should be
Yes.
able to just walk
Yes.
by it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you
Look
park
at
at
that.
Colonel Connolly and you walk down along the path
Yeah.
from Colonel Connolly, like you're going to North Avenue, you'll see it
Yeah.
on the left.
Yeah, I mean, this may be all about nothing because it's only a temporary disturbance, so they're going to put something back
Oh, it's
somewhere else.
temporary. It's temporary. Okay, sorry, that part I was missing.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
it the compensatory storage?
Do they need to provide compensatory
They're
for
providing
temporary?
It says on that, put that plan back up. It says it's temporary.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
is that talking about?
Yeah. It says temporary wetland disturbance, approximately 100 square feet.
Isn't the arrow pointing to the culvert itself?
Yes, that was part of
Well,
culvert with the
Yes.
original plan.
yeah. And then they're, putting crushed stone in there, so they're just stabilizing it and cofferdam just so they can get work done. I don't think it's big enough to be a stream anyways.
Hmm.
But I want to see it. I just want to see what they're doing.
Existing service berry bush to be repurposed into compensatory storage?
Yep,
I believe there was one or two bushes that were on the edge that they were just gonna remove and then replace at what's gonna be the new edge of that,
same thing for that high bush blueberry.
the light blue one you see. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
can't they move it back further? That's too bad. Those are mature. Anyway,
What else? Do they have it laid out or anything? Or is it obvious what we're looking at when you get out there?
I saw some stakes in this picture.
Oh,
These
okay.
stakes would be there showing the
Okay.
original approved plan.
Okay.
Yep.
Ethan, can you send me a picture of that that plan that we just, so I can take it with me?
Yep.
Oh, that must be the replacement area there. Okay.
and again, they're digging this up temporarily, and then they're gonna fill it
They're
back.
not digging this up, they're digging up the culvert area, as I understand it, and is this a permanent compensatory storage area then, Ethan?
It should be, yeah.
That's that's how I was understanding the discussion.
Well, the
Um,
temporary part, I think, was referring to when they were doing or putting in stones in the culvert or that part of it,
Mm,
or whatever that was about with the culvert opening. But yeah, this should be a permanent storage.
And what's gonna be there when it's permanently stored?
Like a little detention basin, like
Uh,
concave in the ground.
Is it just gonna be like a big hole, or because at their presentation they had talked about? Well, maybe I should. I never
should
saw
be-
the. Mhm.
It should be kind of a standard. I don't have an example of what theirs is, but a standard swale or whatever you refer to it as.
Like the ones engineering has done around the lake.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
more of a small gradient going into the depth that it has to hold the water that it needs to.
But they're gonna pull it back from this spot.
Right.
Yes. Same size, same storage capacity. Just the footprint would be different.
yeah. Okay.
Strikes me they're actually being sensitive to the conditions they're encountering on the ground, and by doing that, so.
So is there a lot of water on that parcel? I'm just curious why they wouldn't do it on their
I have no idea.
closer, further back. It seems odd to put it right next to the, in the buffer zone.
It's been a long time since we dealt with this one, I don't
Mm.
recall. What I do seem to recall, Eleanor, is that as you go further away from the lake, you end up back into wetland areas behind these lawn areas.
Oh, by 128?
Yes.
Yes, that. Interesting. Yeah.
So they were sort of, this is a rather challenging territory to work in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it sounds like it wouldn't change anything, change the scope of anything. More of just an issue with, it would
Yeah,
be
I think
easier
you're
for
right.
both of us, for them to
Yeah.
leave that vegetation there.
Well, yeah, and I think it's smart not to demolish those trees just to build compensatory
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because those
So,
trees
And
will
I-
provide benefit to the
Yeah.
water as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think
That
you're
whole
right.
vegetated area along the lakefront provides some
Yeah.
fairly serious benefit.
Yeah.
you're not gonna reproduce that in short order, so. I
Can they
think
move it further
rational
back?
decision.
Well, I can get a nice coffee and go over there and take a look at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's
What's the
pretty
address for
close.
this?
It's
An
200
address, you said?
Quantico.
200 Quantapallet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, if you zoom in, it's probably the shortest walk is to park near Colonel Connolly.
It should be, might be
you
there.
can also walk in from North Ave.
So
Mm.
that 0, that belongs to Wakefield, I thought. So we gave them, is that what happened?
Um,
This,
I wouldn't think we did that. It must have been through the ZBA or the other boards, or maybe a separate agreement for that.
For what are you talking about?
yeah, Ethan, what are you talking about? I'm just saying this is a separate parcel.
Yes, I was
Um,
saying that approval probably didn't come through the commission. It probably came through another board or town department agreeing
Which
to that,
approval? Agreeing to what?
letting them do work on the town-owned land if that's what it looks like is happening.
Okay. I'm wondering if they did that and in exchange the town got money. Was that part of the arrangement to do,
Town got some fairly serious money from these guys.
yeah, to do lake improvements? And then that, if you move up, that piece to the right, that wetland area is supposed to be put in conservation.
Yes,
Right.
Yes, conservation restriction.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. You thought this one would be quick. Sorry, Ethan.
Right.
okay, do we have
Do you want
anything
to
else?
reconvene with this at the next meeting or do it sooner than that? You can let
Well-
me know if you have issues, or you can always wait till the next meeting.
Yeah, like I say, Ethan, I'm just gonna take a quick look at it. It's probably nothing.
Mm.
I just wanna see that it's nothing. And so I don't know if anyone else has problems with it, but I
I'd love
most likely
to,
would be
yeah.
fine with it.
I'd love to look at it.
Oh, you wanna look at it?
Well,
Dave?
I
No.
mean, I can't. I'd love for somebody to explain, on the ground kind of what's happening or whatever.
Mhm.
Not sure any of us can.
Yeah.
Maybe you wanna put it on for the next meeting then. Are they in a hurry to get it done?
I don't know
You
their
guys
time.
go out and walk at them, you can come back and report to us as to what's going on.
Yeah, I was thinking doing it quicker just as a courtesy, keeping that good working relationship with
Wow.
them.
Allowing these guys to move
Yeah.
ahead with their project.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Can I ask another question though? If they're working on this town area, shouldn't there usually be signage or something? Like DEP, whatever going on? Because
Yeah, we
They
do
must have a
require
DEP sign up.
sign.
I haven't seen it on that side of the path. That's why I was thinking it was the town doing the work.
Mm.
And then, there's the matter of somebody putting a garbage can further down the site. Is that
Yeah.
something they can remove? It's not a big deal, but it just looks,
Yeah,
Um,
the contractor can move it, you just ask the guy, I'm sure they're not gonna have a problem.
I'm not doing that, but Ethan, is that something you can do?
Ask them to move the trash can to where?
Well, do we usually allow people? I thought in our order of conditions, we don't allow people to store trash within a certain distance of the buffer zone. And this is, in the pictures I sent you, it's behind the erosion control next to the lake. So it's
Yeah.
like maybe 4 feet from the lake. I didn't think we,
Yeah, that shouldn't be there.
Mm.
just go up to the super's office and just ask him if he could just please move the barrel out of there. And chances are he's gonna throw it in one of his dumpsters and it's done.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think it's a big deal.
I
We,
don't
we
think
can
it's
take a
a,
look at that at the same time as
Yeah.
this, if that's pretty close. But
yeah,
we
it's
should
just
be able
further
to ask
down
them.
the building. It's further down the length of the building.
Okay.
Mm,
It's just one of those things that looks like nobody's monitoring the site if you see something like that out there.
You're referring to like the environmental monitors? Or you mean just more
Uh,
general?
Well, you saw the
Both.
photo that Eleanor sent around. I mean, the trash can is on the wrong side of the silt fencing. I mean, it's in an area it just shouldn't, where it shouldn't exist.
It was on the opposite side?
Yes,
Okay.
between the silt fencing and the lake.
Hmm.
Or not
Okay.
silt fencing, but the
Silt sock.
silt sock, yes.
Yes. I passed somebody who was taking video of,
Mhm.
all the work being done. He seemed very concerned.
Well, really, if that's the only thing you gotta worry about over there, I say it's,
No, I mean, I think he was curious about this area too. Again, there's no DEP signs.
mhm.
But
Well,
it's
I don't think
only
the, I don't
required,
think the,
They're
I don't
not
think the
required.
required with one
requirement,
sign.
right, that's what I was
I don't
just
think
gonna
you're
say.
required to have it around the perimeter of a project.
Okay. Well, I guess it's weird because people, I think the person who stopped and talked to me was said, why are they working on town property? And I didn't know. So
Right, but
now,
that's why I think checking the order or the ZBA decision, maybe
Mhm.
there was probably some accommodation because they were going to do some planting as well. So I
Okay.
don't think they would just. And the
That's-
person can always call the town. I mean,
Yeah.
always good answers. And this applicant has been very forthcoming with any changes,
Yeah.
anything.
I mean, these
Okay.
guys have been pretty careful and actually were pretty cooperative when they appeared before us.
Well, that's good. Like I said, well, Jimmy, it's nothing. I just am not sure what I'm looking at.
I'm
Well,
not sure I'm
Not
gonna be
having
looking
not having seen an order of conditions
okay,
for this project anyway.
Well, I'll take a look with you tomorrow, Jim, if you want.
Oh. Sure.
Yeah.
Just pick a time.
Okay, I'll figure it out in the morning. I'll give you
Yeah,
a call.
figure it out and call me.
Yep.
let us know at the next meeting what you find, please.
Sorry, Ethan, in your pre-construction meeting this morning, how did that go?
It was good. They had all the erosion controls. It's pretty standard. It seems like a lot of the work and potential erosion is pretty far from those controls, so I wouldn't expect any risk of that going into the lake.
Okay. I think when I ran by there last night, there was just a gap in the erosion control behind the cemetery. So they took care of that this morning.
I believe that was because that was outside of any of work they're doing, but I saw the gap there
Okay. And then
with the tree roots. Sorry.
in the situation like this, do they put up a sign like it's like a permit number or anything like that? Judy, what's
Yes, they
typical? Yeah.
put the sign up when we were there.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything additional?
Yeah.
I think we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Thank you.
Thank you,
All in
Ethan. Those were
favor?
good. Yes.
Eleanor,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Jimmy,
yes.
and I vote yes. We are adjourned until our next meeting on June 17th.
Okay.
See you then.